Stars and Strikes is produced in conjunction with the New Hampshire Candlepin Bowling Association. And now your hosts, Doug Brown and Dan Murphy.
Hi, everybody, and welcome once again to Candlepin Stars and Strikes, a brand new season, our 6th here on TV 50. Doug Brown, along with Dan Murphy, back for another year of Candlepin Stars and Strikes. And for those of you who were here last week, you saw the rebroadcast of our first annual Tournament of Champions, and we're, of course, we'll be building to another one coming up next spring.
Yeah, it's exciting. 358, 355, was it? 353. A 5-pin victory for Bob Moran. Exciting. Megabucks is back with us again this year, and we'll get our first qualifier in the next 4 weeks.
All right, we have to reset, of course, all of our amounts from last spring when we left off for our summer vacation. We'll get to that in just a minute, but first of all, we'll introduce you to the two bowlers who will start us off in this tournament series. First of all, a newcomer to Candlepin Stars and Strikes from Greenville, New Hampshire, Glenn LeBlanc.
Okay, and Glenn, as you said, comes from Greenville, carries an average of 120, a high single of 175, and high triple of 424, and making his first appearance with us.
And a left-hander, as you saw, and of course his opponent, the number 4 seed in this tournament, will be a guy who's been here on many occasions, but he's actually not been with us for a while. We're happy to have him back, Steve Vadney.
Okay, yes, carries an average of 128, a high single of 197, a high triple of 488, and he is 18-5 on Stars and Strikes.
And that includes a doubles championship as well. So it'll be Glenn LeBlanc against Steve Vadney as we start the first of our brand new season with a 4-week tournament series, of course, looking to qualify our first bowler for the 1990 Tri-State Megabucks Tournament of Champions. We're going to be back with our first string of bowling and more details on this latter series and the bowlers you'll see coming up, and also details on our bonus ball contest, which will start at $30 at the end of this week's show. We'll be back with all of that right after these messages. Don't go away. All right, once again, welcome back to Candlepin Stars and Strikes for a brand new season here on TV 50, and here's the way the bowlers line up for this first tournament series as we look for our first qualifier for the Tournament of Champions. You notice the tie at the bottom there between today's two opponents, Steve Vadney and Glenn LeBlanc. They settled that one with a coin flip right before the show, and Steve Vadney won the toss and elected to receive and finished fourth by virtue of the coin toss. Chuck Langlois will get the winner of this match next week, then Dan Broder. And Al Cloutier is the number 1 seed with that huge 739 roll-off score. But right now, we've got our first match to get underway, and Glenn LeBlanc will get us started on lane 32 here at Park Place Lanes. Happy to be back for another season. Dan Murphy here, of course, and did you have a nice summer?
Great summer.
Good.
Great. I see you duck me again in the golf match, though.
We just never were really able to put that together, were we?
I understand with my ability you're a little scared of me, but I usually wear my opponents down on the golf course.
Well, seeing as my golf score is up around my bowling score...
Mine is, too, so we ought to be a great match someday.
We'll leave it to everyone's imagination to figure out which is the best. Glenn LeBlanc trying to solve the spread eagle plus the 8-pin in this first box. Imagine a butterfly or two for Glenn LeBlanc, not only being here for the first time, but also facing Steve Vadney, a guy he knows has dominated our program over the years.
Exactly. You know, being the first-time bowler, the lights, the crowd, and the things, a little added pressure. Very important for him to get that first mark up, kind of relax himself a little bit. He was right on the head pin with the first ball in the first box, although he went right through the middle. This time, a little lighter, and he got the strike. So,
there's that first mark, yes.
Yes. He doesn't have to knock down a single pin or anything like that either. Here's the replay. A light hit, everything goes down but that 4-pin, and eventually the 4 goes as well.
And we welcome back Steve Vadney. And watch out, leaving the 1, 7, and 9. And slipping by. Steve's last visit with us was on April 24th, 1988. So it's been just about a year and a half.
Yeah, disappointing 7 really for Steve Vadney. Missing the object pin both the second and the third balls.
Primary reason that Steve has not been with us for all of that time is that he's been having a series of injury problems that have kept him limited in his activity regarding bowling.
1, 3, and 7 looking at Steve.
And just sliding off. Steve mentioned to me before the show that although he did come close several times to qualifying in the meantime. It's just he was inconsistent because of the injuries. It started as a bone spur in the neck, by the way, and then later turned out to be a disc problem and back trouble. And I'm sure a lot of folks watching and listening can empathize with that. If you've got a back problem, there's very little you can do without pain.
And Glenn looking to fill the strike off target. Leaves himself the 1 and the 2, though. Not a bad break. He has to watch out now. If he splits the 1-2, we have a piece of wood in between. It could deflect the ball around the 2-pin. But it goes to the right side, which is the correct way to make that one. Spare on strike. You see the replay.
So Glenn LeBlanc on the board with 2 marks in a row. And right through the middle, second time he's done it.
This time spread eagle and the 9-pin in the back. 3 fill and 43 after 3 for Glenn. And look at this.
Oh, wow, leaving the 3-pin.
And he had a pin come right in behind the 3. Just missed making that mark. Great try by Glenn. And yet to leave a pin standing.
I'd like to welcome back also Tri-State Megabucks to Candlepin Stars and Strikes. As a presenting sponsor for the 1989-90 season. They'll be with us all the way, and we're happy to have them join us.
And boy, didn't we have an exciting Tournament of Champions.
Oh.
Well, that's still being talked about. Congratulations again to Bob Moran. Those of you who are new to Stars and Strikes, where have you been? But if you don't understand what the Tournament Champion is, we have a ladder championship every 4 weeks. And we take the winner of the ladder championship, and he qualifies for the Tournament of Champions at the end of the year. We bring back the 6 ladder champions to roll off, and they're seeded by the winning score in the championship round of the ladder. Kind of exciting.
Steve Vadney still looking for his first mark. And he trails by 17 after the first 4.
Would also like to applaud Channel 50 and especially Jack Foley. Channel 50 now is the sponsor of the New Hampshire Candlepin Bowling Association's Pro-Am. And we'll be talking more about the Pro-Am in the coming months, but to be eligible for that, any bowler can participate in the Pro-Am. The only qualification is you must be a league bowler in an NHCBA house. So if you haven't joined the league yet, do so. And Pro-Am is a lot of fun. We will be awarding the winners of this past season's Pro-Am, presenting them their trophies on air in a few weeks.
9 for Glenn LeBlanc and a 62 first half. On lane 31, backdoor and leaving the head pin.
Great break there. Everything went down but the head pin.
Well, Glenn certainly appears to be very relaxed now. That's his 3rd mark, and he's off to the early lead here. Steve Vadney with the backdoor strike, and he takes out the head pin for his first mark.
Complete backdoor on that one. Shut the door behind him. Everything but the 3-pin and the head pin, and then finally those two go for a strike, his first mark of the match. And right back on the head pin, leaves himself a triangle 3-5-6.
He's on it, and he's got it for 2 in a row, cutting the lead to 6.
You see him converting that triangle. No problem there. Split the 3 and the 6. The 3-pin took the 5 for him. Spare on strike. And as Doug mentioned, 6 pins now is the lead for Glenn.
Glenn with another 3 fill.
You see his roll-off score. 695. As a matter of fact, you had to hit at least 695 to qualify. That's right. These are well. It's a first show of the season. Yes. As a matter of fact, you had to hit 695 because these are the 4th and 5th seeds.
That's one of the higher 5th place scores that we've had in recent times.
And the finals were held right here at Park Place Lanes,
which may account for
has the reputation of being a high-scoring house. Which makes no difference to the bowler as long as one isn't competing here and another one in another house. Conditions are the same for everyone. And look out!
Yes,
here it comes.
Glenn LeBlanc with his 4th mark.
There's a little flush on the head pin. He leaves the 2-pin. He needs some help, and he gets the help from the 7-pin coming off the wall and coming back for the 2-pin. Steve Vadney on a spare.
And on lane 32 with a big fill, and he'll leave a rocking 10-pin.
Steve seems to put a little more speed on the ball the last few boxes, holding the line a little tighter and being able to hit that head pin consistently. He's off target this time. No, he gets it.
What do you mean? He hit it right where he wanted to.
2 ways to make it. The right way and Steve's way in this shot. I don't think Steve wanted to be this far left, but it worked out. Back on the head pin this time through the middle. 2-4-7 on the left with a 6-10 on the right. 5 fill on the spare.
Steve takes the lead for the first time, although he's opposite a mark here in the 8th. And he's off target. You mentioned speed, Dan, and that's interesting because Steve said during the time he was hurt, that was the toughest thing for him to adjust to, was getting the proper speed on the ball. He kept fooling himself into thinking he had to throw the ball harder or softer, or he just couldn't get the feel back. Usually it's something you don't even think about probably, and he just couldn't get that feeling back.
This game is challenging enough, but if you're not comfortable when you're performing, especially on the level that Steve Vadney does, it's got to be tough, and it's got to be frustrating for him.
A 7 fill on the spare in the 8th for Glenn LeBlanc, reestablishing a small 3-pin lead for him.
Glenn doesn't waste any time up there either, and that's a sign of a new bowler also. Not taking his time up there between balls, but the results have been all right. He's only left 2 pins standing. 111 through 9. 4 marks, 3 spares and a strike for Glenn LeBlanc, looking for his first victory on Stars and Strikes.
And speaking of victories, Glenn LeBlanc works as an assistant department manager at Victory Supermarkets in Fitchburg, Massachusetts. I was waiting for you to say that so I could tie that in. And does most of his bowling at Brian's Bowlaway in Gardner and the New Palace Lanes in Fitchburg, Mass.
I thought you were going to say he does most of his shopping at. And a 9 and a 120 is average exactly for the first game.
Probably would have liked a little more considering he had 4 marks with the 2 3 fills. Steve Vadney will need a mark to capture the lead here in the first game. Steve works at Sturm Ruger Company. Lives in Claremont with his wife Annette and their 2 children Jennifer and Stevie, and they're all here today watching Steve bowl. Steve does most of his bowling at the Sunset Lanes. I'm sure many of our bowlers or many of our viewers rather, are bowlers active in leagues, which are underway, of course, in recent weeks.
Absolutely, and if you're not into a league and you're interested, call your nearest NHCBA house and inquire.
Well, it could have been worse, but it could have been better, too, as the wood kind of cut right between the 2 and the 5, and that wood that's there may be a problem if he can't avoid it.
Almost has to go left on the 2-pin, and that's what he tried to do, and he was flush, pushed the 2-pin right straight back. So Glenn LeBlanc's going to take a mere 3-pin lead going into that second game.
120 for Glenn LeBlanc, 117 for Steve Vadney. We're through the first string. We'll be back with details on our bonus ball contest and string number 2 when we come back. Don't go away. Please send postcards only with your name, address, and a number from 1 to 10. Mail them on into Park Place Lanes, Route 28, Windham, New Hampshire, 03087. Of course, at the end of each show, we pull a postcard out of the big TV, and if your number on the postcard matches the number that winner bowls at the end of the show, you win whatever's accumulated in the jackpot.
Very nicely done, Doug.
Kind of. I got it all in there. It wasn't in the right order, but I got it all in there.
He's sitting at home and said, "What did he say?"
For those of you who'd like a transcript of what I just said, please write in. Steve Vadney. Trailing by 3 as we start the middle string.
Well, they had a bet in the truck who would make the first mistake, and I guess hands down I won when I talked about the qualifying scores. But
right, but then as soon as you took the pressure off,
then you fouled me.
Steve with the wood, and it doesn't quite work for him.
What?
But as usual, our TV 50 Sports crew has been impeccable so far in this.
Yes, but it's early.
Yeah.
And we will be quick to note when they make that mistake, too.
They just returned, actually, from bowling camp only last week.
Oh, it's,
after being away from the summer.
We thought we didn't need it, but obviously we should have went with them. Everything but the 7-pin for Steve Vadney. Got a nice guide next to that 7-pin, so. Should be no problem, and he does use that guide. Spare up in the second.
His 4th mark, each bowler with 4 now. And each bowler with 3 spares and a strike. Oh.
Off target to the right, removes the 6-pin. Glenn just held on to that ball a fraction of a second too long.
Almost converted it.
Next week's challenger, a bowler who's been with us before, Chuck Langlois from Concord, New Hampshire.
Actually, of the 5 bowlers in this series, Dan, only Glenn LeBlanc is a newcomer. Of course, for those of you who may not be familiar or remember the way we operate this format involving the Tournament of Champions, if you qualify for the show and do not win the series championship and qualify for the tournament, then you're automatically eligible to return and try again. In fact, a couple of the guys who got into the Tournament of Champions last year got in on their 2nd tries. Mike
Right.
Morgan was one, in fact.
And Pat Pay was the other, I believe.
And another 9 for Glenn LeBlanc, and he left the head pin the first time and the 5 pin that time. Or was it the head pin both times?
Head pin both times.
Okay.
Doug's ahead, 2-1.
Steve Vadney right in the pocket and on a spare for an 8-fill.
Leaves himself to 2-4 and takes over the lead. And 2 spares in a row for Steve. Steve moves over to lane 31, looking for another big fill on this spare. And can't get much bigger than that.
Oh, it's spinning, but it will not go down. The 8-pin stays.
Couple choices here. He's got the 8-pin. Well, he's got a clear shot at it, or he could play the wood out front. If he does, he's going to have to be high on the wood, turn it, push it back. That's what he did. Nice shot. 3 in a row for Steve Vadney.
taking the lead here in string number 2.
And again, Glenn off the head pin this second game. Leaves himself the head pin plus the 4, 7, 8. Got some favorable wood there. He got a good shot at it if he can clip the head pin.
Oh, yes.
Nice shot.
Nicely done by Glenn LeBlanc. He's been a little off target with his first ball the last several boxes, but made up for it that time. A lot of wood helping on the deck.
He's reached the point in the match now where he needs a big fill and another mark to get him going again.
Crosses over, and he leaves an 8-pin.
Solid 8-pin, too. He did cross over in the 1-2 pocket, but good mixing action. Big 9 fill on the spare. Probably want to shoot right at the 8-pin. If he clips the front piece of wood, it shouldn't be too bad unless he's high like that.
Oh, and he got 2 cracks at it, but 0 for 2.
It's too far to the left. Carrying the ball off the wood. The wood went one way, the ball went the other, and the 8-pin still stands.
And a 47 through 4 for Glenn LeBlanc. Steve Vadney is 47 and a spare up in the 4th, and Steve Vadney has taken the lead here at about the halfway point of our first match of the new season. We'll be back with more in a minute. Steve Vadney to fill a mark. He's got 3 in a row here in game number 2. And he has taken the lead by 7 plus whatever he gets on this ball. Lost it to the left, but got 7 out of it.
1, 8, 10 left. $74 through 5 boxes for Steve Vadney. Opened with a 117. And off target again. 4 horsemen plus the 8-pin. Well, opening for Glenn. Glenn LeBlanc. 2 open frames for Steve Vadney, for Glenn to work on. The 5th and 6th frames. Chance to climb back in it.
Steve's had his marks in bunches. He had 3 in a row in the first game, 3 in a row here in the second. That's been it.
Good ball by Glenn.
Boy, he throws hard. And he's got the 2-5 with a frozen piece of wood on the 5.
Got to have the 2-pin to make the shot, I would say, unless he gets a lucky break off the sidewall.
Yep, not to be. He'll take a 10. He trails by 14 in the match.
Through the middle, spread eagle, 3, 6, 10 on the right with a 2, 4, 7 on the left.
Boy, he gives that a run, doesn't he?
Very nearly clipped the 10-pin. That's what you have to do. Sometimes you can't cut it fine enough to go over and get the 3-pin, but you might catch the 10 and come back. Pretty good out. 3 on one side, 3 on the other for a 10 frame gives him 67.
But he loses an opportunity to pick up some ground there. Steve Vadney, we mentioned his overall record here on Stars and Strikes is 18 wins and 5 losses. 5 of those wins came in doubles competition when he paired with Jackie Sterner to steamroll through a doubles championship a few years ago with 5 straight wins. But in singles, he's still 13 and 5, and 13 of those wins have come in series championship matches. He has won every series championship match he's been on here on Stars and Strikes. He's won all 5 of them, 4 in singles, 1 in doubles. And in singles competition, his average here is almost 131.
He's got a tough shot. Looking at him here, he's got the 4-pin piece of wood out in front. It's like you almost have to cap that piece of wood to make the 4-pin. Oh, he's gonna have to come off the wall.
Ooh, we got it.
He was able to come low enough and have the wood come off the wall. Nice shot by Steve.
And in the pocket for his fill of 7 with a triangle.
3, 5, 6. Already at 100 through 7 frames for Steve Vadney.
And that ball bounced on him just a little bit. May have cost him the spare. Glenn LeBlanc now. Spins it up a little bit short of the head pin. That kind of bowling ball that Glenn uses, you can really see the spin on it.
A little bit of a struggle right now, finding that head pin. Both bowlers, as you said, are going in streaks. They seem to hit that head pin consistently for 2 or 3 boxes and then lose it for a few. Just sliding by the head pin that time, but he's looking at the 1, 9, and 10. See the look on Glenn's face that he knows he's struggling a little bit right now.
Ooh,
nice try.
That was a nice try. Leaving the 10 pin. And Glenn is struggling a little bit here in the middle game. He's been fortunate that Steve Vadney hasn't run away on him. Although Steve does have a 20-pin lead now as we go to the final 2 of game number 2.
You know, Steve would like nothing better to put 1 or 2 more marks up. Of course, Glenn just the opposite. Would like to put 2 up himself. Get back some of that 20-pin lead that Steve Vadney has. 4 and 8.
Ironically, the first time Steve Vadney was ever here on our program, he lost. That was back in May of '84, right after we started. He lost to Rich Dion. The spare for Steve in the 9th.
There he uses the wood effectively here again to come off the wall and clear out the 8-pin. 119 through 9 with the ball to come. And right back in a big 9-pin drop. Right back in the pocket. Leaves just the 10-pin.
And he's off target. But Steve will be 20 pins better than string number 1 as he'll take a 137 and a 254 2-game total. Glenn LeBlanc, lane 32, buries it maybe a little bit too much in the 1-2 pocket, and now he's got a rather interesting leave here with no wood, the 3, 4, 6, and 7. And he moved the 4-pin.
Try to split the 3 and the 6.
Oh, boy.
Too bad. Right idea. Couldn't have missed that by much. Still leaves the 4-7.
He's made some great efforts on some of these attempted spare shots. They haven't all worked for him, but he could really use a mark right here.
Almost a must. You don't want to go in 30-plus pins behind Steve Vadney with 1 game to go.
Another big ball, this time leaving the 4-pin, and if that wood doesn't cause a problem, he may have a shot at this one.
The wood looks like it's out of play. Dottie Lorick is going to run down and check it out.
Dottie working the scoreboard for us also as usual. And expecting rain here, I think.
Yeah, it looks like, yes. Well, you know, as we tape, Hugo is now gone. Maybe she didn't get the word that by the time you watch this show, it'll be a few weeks after that. But speaking of taping, our next taping session is October 29th, and that is a tough break for Glenn. Looked like he played that well enough to clear the 4-pin, but...
Well, now Glenn is faced with exactly what you talked about, Dan, a 29-pin deficit with 1 game to go. As Steve Vadney has assumed command here after game number 2. We'll be back to finish this match on Candlepin Stars and Strikes after these messages. One game to go, and Glenn LeBlanc has a hill to climb.
29 pins. That's the deficit facing Glenn. He's got to start early.
And there is a start. He'll leave the 2-pin, but he's got a much better shot at this one than he had at the one a moment ago to end game number 2.
Watch out. Ooh.
Oh, wow.
This is where you got to tell yourself you take 1 box at a time.
And it's still there. Let's take a look at what happened on that first one.
I just released the ball prematurely and left it to the left.
Just missing. Crosses over this time.
Well, you know, this is an automatic 8 or 9-pin drop because you're trying to forget about the shot you just missed, and you always come back and drop 8 or 9 so you can say to yourself, well, that would have been a nice fill. Always happens. And another spare. A spare up in the second for Glenn. Could have been 2 in a row, but could have, should have, and all those just didn't happen for Glenn. There he is, clearing out the 2 pins there. It's one of those situations you have to take 1 box at a time and try to block it out of your mind and just go on from here.
Steve Vadney getting a little extra pinfall, leaving the 3 and 10, a makeable shot here. Steve has 8 marks already. Started with a strike and then now has 7 marks, 7 spares rather, and it didn't happen.
He went too far left as well.
In his 18 singles matches on Stars and Strikes prior to this one, Steve has 8 400 triples. So that's almost a 50-50 chance. That's not bad. Watch out. This time it'll be the 1 and 10 with a lot of wood. The wood I don't think is going to help necessarily.
Well, because there's 2 or 3 pieces there, so it's going to snap away from the head pin.
Yep.
Okay, well, a chance for Glenn. 2 open frames for Steve Vadney.
$19 in the first 2 for Steve, and here's a look at that spare shot.
Watch the wood. Of course, he wanted to at least hit the head pin a little more flush than he did. So he didn't really get the benefit of the 3 pieces, but would have been a tough shot either way. Glenn LeBlanc filling on a spare and off target. And a disappointing half Worcester to the right. 2 fill.
Boy, Glenn has had 6 marks, and he's had a 2 fill and 2 3 fills.
Well, Glenn, pretty good looking left-hander though, and first time on the show. I think we talked to all the bowlers that try out for this show and said, okay, you're going to make the show this time. That's the good news. The bad news is you're going to have to face Steve Vadney.
Oh, wow. And this time the 1-8-9 punched out. And it's about everything has happened to Glenn at this point.
One of those matches that builds your character a little bit. And he'll learn from this experience, I'm sure.
Don't tell Glenn LeBlanc that Park Place Lanes is a high-scoring house.
And good out by Glenn. Everything but the 7-pin. A good out and make it a 9 frame. Gives him 38 through 4. Next week's challenger, as I said, Chuck Langlois from Concord, New Hampshire. He's been with us before. In fact, his record is 2 wins and 2 losses.
He's with us today, in fact, checking out the action scouting his future opponent. No. Steve did what he could do, flying the wood up over the top of the 7-pin, but didn't get the result he was looking for. Take a 10 box. Maintaining his 29-pin lead, and of course, Steve will be happy to just match whatever Glenn does here in the third game.
It's 3 open frames to start off this third game for Steve Vadney.
Spinning it a little off target to the right, leaving himself the 4 horsemen plus the 10-pin with a piece of wood that may help. Not enough.
Well, a couple more open frames for Glenn to work on.
A 9 for Steve, and dead even through the first 4 of this third game, but Steve Vadney has that cushion to work with. He leads by 29. We'll pause and come right back for the conclusion of the match after these words. All right, 6 boxes to go for this man, and he still trails by 29. Another big first hit and a strike this time. Well, he's had a number of first balls when he's really ripped through the pocket and not had much to show for it.
You know, anytime someone throws a strike here, because of the scoring in this house, it's always a chance for the double. You throw a double, 29 pins can disappear quickly. Good looking ball.
Boy, and that's exactly what I meant a moment ago.
Well, he may have a shot. He wants the wood to come over and not block the 4-pin. All right, got a shot, plays the wood in the 4-pin. The wood has a good chance of taking out the 10-pin.
Let's watch it. Yes.
He does, so 2 in a row and quickly. Watch him play the wood effectively here for the 10-pin. Well, Steve Vadney is looking at 2 marks in a row against him now.
And coming right back with a solid 4-pin. The wood, I don't believe, will hurt, although it's kind of nudged up against the pin. The cap is there. He has to watch out for that, but he takes it out.
Matches a mark up anyways. He matches the strike up with his own spare. Remember, 29 pins is the lead.
And an 8-fill and a possible second mark.
It's funny how both bowlers struggle. One gets a couple marks, the other comes right back with his own. And
no problem. Yep.
Well, Glenn has just got to try to bowl his own game and keep marking. There's, see, the 6-10 covered by Steve Vadney. 2 marks in a row for him as well. So in the exchange, Glenn gained a couple. Right back on the head pin, needs a break. 2, 4, 7, and the 3-pin.
Has to have a comebacker, and it doesn't happen. The 1, 2, 7, and 8.
What's going to hurt here, I believe, is the wood behind the head pin. It's going to send the head pin right to the left sidewall, and it might not carry the 2-pin. And he's almost better off playing the 2-pin and clipping the wood, but let's see what happens. Oh, cleared out the 2, left the 8.
For a 94 through 8, and time running out. Particularly since Steve will probably at least reestablish his lead with this fill. or close to it. And then he has 2 open frames against which to work.
Slid the 5-pin off its spot. Got a good 8 fill on the spare. And gains those 2 pins right back up to 29-pin lead.
And another one, this time missing the object pin for Steve's 11th mark. 10 of them are spares. It's interesting, his first mark was a strike, and he hasn't thrown one since. It'll be a 6 drop.
1, 3, 7, 8.
That pushes the lead up to 35. And an outstanding go at it, but the 7-pin will stay. Two to go now for Glenn LeBlanc.
And Glenn's going to have to throw strikes to have a chance now.
A whole bunch of them.
4-7 left. Glenn just threw his hands up saying, oh boy. And he was able to miss it far enough to the right to make the shot. Clipped the wood and
probably thinking, where were those breaks earlier? I really needed them.
yeah, sure. Look at this. Look at this. Always when it's mathematically over, you seem to get the breaks. Really, the second game really did him in at 105. Didn't bowl that badly either for the 105.
2 in a row here.
So it looks like Steve Vadney will take his first step towards possibly another ladder championship, but standing in his way is some quality bowlers. Chuck Langlois next week. The week after, Dan Broder comes in, and the week after that, the #1 seed, Al Cloutier.
A 4 fill for Glenn LeBlanc and a 127, and it is already in the bag for Steve Vadney. Of the 4 singles championships that Steve has won here on the show, twice he came in as the #1 seed and won them. And the other 2 times he came up from the #4 spot and won 4 in a row, and another time he came in as the #3 seed and won 3 in a row. So he's shown that he can do it back to back.
And finishes up with a spare in the 10th, 118. Comfortable victory, but he only has 2 more marks than Glenn. The machine, the malfunction, only set up the 10-pin. Steve turned around and say, I'll take it. Meaning the 9-pin on the spare.
Steve will move over and finish it up on lane 32. And it's a 5 drop and a 123 for a 377. So Steve Vadney with a comfortable win. Not comfortable until the end, though, as it was in doubt until those last few boxes. So Steve has won, and we will come back with chats with both bowlers and some of the bonus ball contests. See if we can give you some money right after these words. Back on Candlepin Stars and Strikes, and we have completed the first match of our brand new season. We're going to have the bonus ball contest in just a moment, but first of all, let's have a little visit with Glenn LeBlanc, making his first visit here on Stars and Strikes, and not a win, Glenn, but we do have a check for you for $100 and also the plaque from the N&R Trophy Company of Winchendon, and I understand this was your first try even attempting to get on the show, so I guess that's not bad to make it here on the first try.
Yeah, I was lucky, you know, and very fortunate to get my foot in the door, and I hope to be back soon.
I understand that you're also doing some 10-pin bowling. You've been successful at that over the years, too.
Well, yeah, the game across town. We don't like
there you go.
On Candlepin shows.
There you go. Thanks very much, Glenn. We hope to see you again.
Hope to be here again.
All right, that's Glenn LeBlanc. And now Steve Vadney over on lane 31 for our bonus ball contest. We're going to see if we can't get a match. We have $30, and it's going to be a 6. Dan Murphy reaching into the TV for our summer mail. And it's not a winner for Florence Philbrook of Milford, New Hampshire. Florence just missed with a guess of 7. So Florence will be sending you a TV50 NHCBA desk pen as a consolation prize. Well, it's been a long time. Welcome back, and congratulations on the win.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a while. It's good to be back.
How do you feel?
Pretty good. Yeah, it's been a long time. Of course, as you probably know, I had surgery in the back last year, and it's coming along pretty good now.
Well, it must feel pretty good to get that first win out of the way anyway.
I thought this would be my toughest one, you know. It's been so long getting back from last year and whatnot that, of course, got a lot of breaks. Missed a head pin, and got a few rips there. And
I know you're probably already aware that Chuck Langlois will be your opponent next week.
Yeah, I know that.
All right, well, we'll be looking forward to that match, Steve, as you go for 2 in a row. Congratulations.
Okay.
All right, and just a brief word with Dan Murphy. Steve Vadney coming back after a difficult time, and granted, as he said, it wasn't an easy match, but he did get as many marks as he needed to win, I guess.
Well, I'm sure he felt a little worse when he missed the 10-pin a couple times for Spears, but next week I think he's going to have to be a little sharper. Chuck Langlois is a good Candlepin bowler, and he's going to give Steve everything he can handle.
All right, we'll be back with that match next Sunday at 12 noon. We hope you'll be here, too. For Dan Murphy and the whole TV50 Sports crew, Doug Brown, have a good week, everybody.